Welcome back to Chopping It Up, episode 18, with Stephen and Craig. Joe couldn't be here with us today, but you know what they say, the show must go on. So it is just me and our second host here, Craig. He's a bit of a silent partner, doesn't have a lot to say all the time. Fairly quiet guy. You know how it can be, sitting in the shadows, just kind of hanging out, recording what we have to say, jotting everything down. Well, I have some good stuff for us to get into this week. I have a little presentation I prepared, chopping it up, episode topics. It's about foods that only Americans eat and foods that only Europeans eat. Thought maybe we could talk about some of the foods that I like. And you know what? I was thinking maybe you guys can respond in the comments with some of the foods that you like, some of your summer favorites, you know, that kind of stuff. Really just hanging out, having a good time, chopping it up with one another. Or I guess this is more so you guys listening to me chop it up, but maybe you can respond and get a little bit little discourse going in the comments, little back and forth conversations, a little fan interaction. If you have any fans, can't say we get a lot of views. It is what it is. It is what it is. We're growing. We're working on it. So, this week you guys may have seen on TikTok, we posted a video of us making some birria. That is a Mexican dish with slow cooked chicken and a consomme. We have some guajillo peppers, ancho chili peppers, a cinnamon stick, coriander, salt, pepper, a lot of good seasonings in there. Fresh ingredients, bay leaves. They all really pack a punch. I always thought it was a good comfort food. I didn't really discover it until last year, but ever since I discovered it, it's definitely been one of my favorite things to make. And during the summer, we like to kind of meal prep a little bit. We do all year round, honestly. But for whatever reason, the summer feels like more of a taco meal prep or Mexican food. We tend to really stick with those kinds of flavors during the summer. So we'll do like an al pastor taco meal prep, or we do like a copycat chipotle chicken. And this time we did birria. We've done carnitas. Can't really go wrong with any of these. I have to say, of all those, probably the copycat chipotle chicken's my least favorite. I would probably say the al pastor is my favorite, but it's probably because we like to put pineapple on it. But just a nice little. It's an easy dinner. Come home from work, don't really feel like cooking. You know, you just pull it out of the fridge, and you have meals for pretty much every night during the week. So this week we did birria, and like I said, we like to consist of chicken thighs and a bunch of peppers and different seasonings. This week what we did was we got about, I don't know, maybe 9 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I took my boning knife and trimmed off the excess fat. Then I took our Lodge cast iron Dutch oven, put a bit of vegetable oil in the bottom of it, and then browned the chicken thighs and a little bit of yellow onion just to get some flavor on it. Kind of get the flavor starting to pour out. Browning's good for that. Then we added some tomato paste and some chopped up garlic. And once it really got aromatic and the tomato paste started to brown a little bit, we added in our beef stock, our chicken thighs and onions once again. And then we put in our peppers. So we had, like I mentioned before, guajillos, anchos, a cinnamon stick. We put in some coriander, some black pepper, some oregano, some salt, and we let it cook for about 90 minutes. Then at once 90 minutes goes by, I like to pull all the peppers out, the onion, the garlic, depending on how you cut it. Whether you threw in whole garlic cloves or just kind of minced it up. Take all those out, put them in a blender, blend all that together, and then pour it back into the pot with the beef broth and let it cook for another 90 minutes. And when that's done, man, first of all, the whole house smells so good while that's cooking because you have the cinnamon stick in there, which is very fragrant, and then you have the spice from the peppers that you can smell, and it all is just coming together in a really nice medley. But at 90 minutes, you pull your chicken thighs out, and at this point, they just fall apart under their own weight. I mean, they are so tender. It's fantastic. It's like a pulled chicken, really. So we put that into a bowl. We reserve some consomme on the side, and then chop up some cilantro, some limes, and some red onion. And then we take our tortillas, put them in the pan with a little bit of consomme, then put some cheese in them till it starts to melt. And then we add a little cilantro, a little red onion, and then throw our shredded chicken right on top of that and fold her up, let it kind of get a little crispy on the outside. And then it's ready to eat with a pinch of lime, a squeeze of lime on it. It is so good. You have the nice richness from the cheese. You have a little bit of heat from the meat, and then the lime and the cilantro brings a nice freshness to it. And it's a great, great meal. As a side, we made some Spanish rice using a lot of the same ingredients, which is nice when you go to the grocery store. Keeps the price down a little bit, and well, it's less wasteful. So for the rice, we took a little bit of vegetable oil in a pan, throw in some garlic until it starts to get fragrant. Then we put in some reserved yellow onion and some tomato paste so it starts to brown. Doing a little bit of carrot, baby chopped up baby carrot with that. And then threw in our rice, dry in the pan, and just kind of fried it up in the oil until it actually, you know what? I'm sorry. No, I did the tomato paste after the rice. So let me restart. I did vegetable oil, garlic, onion, carrot. Then I threw in the rice and let it fry for a few minutes. It starts to get a little golden brown. I guess you call it toasting the rice. Once it's nice and toasted, throw in the rest of our tomato paste, and then it'll start to turn brown after a few minutes. Then throw in, a 2-to-1 ratio of rice to chicken stock. Throw our chicken stock in the pan and let it simmer away until it all comes together. And throw in a little bit of onion powder, salt, garlic powder. I think it's a Goya Polo seasoning we have, which is just a chicken flavored seasoning. Throw a little bit of that in there with the rice. And man, it is a great side to go with the tacos that we made. So we've been having that this week, and one of my favorite meals. Like I said, check it out over on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram to get a good look at what we're doing. There's nice videos of it, and if you're interested, I can share my recipe. It's my own personal recipe. But if anybody wants to give it a shot, let me know. I'd be happy to share it with you guys. On Instagram, we are at choppingitup_pod. So check us out there. And then on YouTube, where you're more than likely listening to this, but it is just the word chopping it up, no spaces. And then on TikTok, it is the same thing, chopping it up, no spaces. So check those out if you guys want to, kind of see what I'm talking about, get a nice visual. And like I said, if you have any interest in trying it out for yourself, just let me know and I'll be happy to share my recipe with you. So moving past that, this is the first week all year. Big week for me. Every summer, there's one thing that I really look forward to. That's watermelon. Got our first watermelon this week. I can't say it was a great one, but I think it was pretty good. I've been seeing them in the grocery store, but it's crazy this year. I've seen them, they're like $9 a watermelon, which is outrageous. I know normally they're $5, $6. So it's only $3 or $4 more. But honestly, out of principle, it just feels wrong to pay $9 for a watermelon. So we haven't been buying one, but this week went to BJ's. And they were $6, and then we had a coupon for half off. So we got a $3 watermelon. And I'll be honest, I think it kind of tastes like a $3 watermelon. It's good. It's fresh. But I can't say it's super sweet. It's pretty pink on the inside, almost white. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the flavor. I know, like with strawberries, I guess strawberries traditionally used to be whiter, but they were bred for color, or I guess, how would I say? Maybe they were raised for color to be more appealing to the eye rather than flavor, so that people are more likely to buy them. So I don't know if something similar has happened with watermelon, where they've been kind of the seeds have been cultivated to make the flesh of the watermelon more red, or if they're going for flavor, or I don't know how closely related color is to flavor. But I don't know. It's okay. So, I don't know. What's your guys' favorite fruit? Mine has to be watermelon, which is unfortunate because you can only get it for what, maybe 4 or 5 months of the year. But when you can get, I take advantage of the opportunity and I get as much of it as I can. But I don't know, is watermelon an American thing? Do they not eat it in Europe? I have no idea. Or do they eat it like in Asia, in Australia? I think most watermelons come from North Carolina. I don't know. Something wondering if you have any European listeners out there. I guess let us know if that's something that you guys have over there. And if it's not, then definitely worth trying because it is one of the great summer. Like, honestly, I think I'd probably call it an American snack. You see it in a lot of movies, kind of like the quintessential like barbecue stereotype, right? Hot dogs, hamburgers, corn, and then you always have like the watermelon triangle slices. So I like my watermelon in cubes. I'm a big sliced person, so that's kind of what I've been eating now is watermelon cubes. I know some people like to scoop it out with a melon baller, and you have little watermelon balls. But that's I don't know, that's just messy. I like to have a little bit of structure in my watermelon. When you scoop them out like that, then it starts to get I don't know, like the pockets in the watermelon start to fill with juice, and it just gets very messy and sticky, and I don't know. Nobody needs that. It's kind of a mess. But one thing that I've been thinking about, and something that I find really interesting, especially with the World Cup now, I've been seeing a lot of stuff on TikTok, a lot of videos of Europeans coming to America and trying American foods and just seeing things that they don't have in Europe and kind of being impressed by it or is maybe surprised. Or I guess maybe we're just kind of living up to the stereotype of America. I don't know. But foods that we have in America that aren't eaten in Europe are very interesting to me. Things like peanut butter, where, everybody eats peanut butter in America, unless you're allergic to peanuts, of course. Well, everybody knows what it is. It's a very, very common food. But over in Australia and Europe, it's not something that they really eat. And if they do, it's definitely not the same, the same kind of food that we have here. They have something called peanut butter, but their peanut butter is not our peanut butter. So I thought maybe we could look at some of these foods. I had our friend Chat make up a PowerPoint for us to discuss. And there's things like fermented fish, raw pork, or biscuits covered in sausage gravy. Little taste of American and European food there. So we're gonna take a look at a few foods that are truly exclusive to the U.S. and in Europe, and just kind of discuss what we've heard of, what we haven't heard of, and which would we rather. All right. So here's some classic American foods. I have to say I've maybe only tried half of these, and I can't say that I know what some of these are either. But biscuits and gravy, that's definitely a great American staple. It's definitely more of a Southern food. I like biscuits a lot. Biscuits and gravy is good. You definitely can't eat it every day. Right? That's a very heavy, very unhealthy meal, but it's very rich and very good. I when I've had it, I usually get it and it has a little bit more gravy than I'd like. I'd like, a tasteful amount because you have to have some. It's good flavor. It's salty, it's rich, it's great, but too much of it's not a good thing either. But biscuits and gravy, starting off the American food list, grits, which is okay. I don't know. I look at it as like a southern cream of wheat. Another southern food, it's okay. I don't think anybody's writing home about it. Nobody's impressed by it. But it's probably something that we only eat here, I guess, because I don't know. I think we just grow a lot of corn. I think grits is ground up corn. So it makes sense. Then we have corn dogs, which definitely seem like a stereotypical, American fare food, but corn dogs are fantastic. A hot dog wrapped in cornmeal and then fried. Can't go wrong there. Frito pie, which I don't know that I've ever seen a Frito pie. I've definitely never had a Frito pie. All that I know about it is that Monday nights are Wolf Brand Chili Frito pie night in King of the Hill. So I'm gonna have to look that up. Actually, you know what? Let's look it up right now. See what a Frito pie is. Because like I said, I've never had one. I don't even know really. I guess it's chili and Fritos. I'd have to assume. So okay, Frito pie is a Tex-Mex dish featuring layers of Fritos corn chips, chili, and cheese, often baked as a casserole, served directly in a torn open bag. So honestly, I've heard of walking tacos, where I guess you take a bag of Doritos or Fritos and you just add in, cheese, ground beef, kind of whatever ingredients you want. And, it's in the bag, so it's portable. You can walk around with it. And that's pretty much what this seems like to me. So nothing crazy, but the pictures I'm seeing looks good. All right, that's cool. That's cool. All right, next we have PB and J. For those of you that don't know, that's peanut butter and jelly. That is good stuff. Everybody knows peanut butter and jelly. Can't go wrong with that. I'm a big fan of the strawberry jelly, but like I said, can't go wrong. And then we have Cincinnati chili, which I do not know what Cincinnati chili is. I'm surprised to see there's two chilies here. Let's see, Cincinnati chili. Obviously, it's a chili of some sort. So, okay, also known as Skyline chili. Interesting. So it's ground beef, tomato sauce, chicken broth, chili powder, unsweetened chocolate. Okay. I've never made chili. I don't know how common it is to add chocolate. I think it is fairly common. Although, what do we have here? Well, it features a blend of Mediterranean spices. The most famous secret ingredients that give it its signature depth and uniqueness are cinnamon and unsweetened dark chocolate. All right, well, that's not a secret anymore, then I guess, huh? But okay. So you have a chili. Definitely does. It says Mediterranean spices, but it definitely doesn't seem like the kind of food that I associate with Europe. So I'd be very surprised to hear of it being eaten over in Europe. You guys know that Americans consume hundreds of millions of pounds of peanut butter every year, even though peanut butter and jelly is surprisingly uncommon across most of Europe. But we're eating hundreds of millions of pounds of it. That's insane. European foods, I'm gonna have to definitely look. I don't know. Okay, of these six, I know what haggis is, but there's something called surströmming here, number two. You know what? Let's get a definition for haggis. I'm familiar with it. I've definitely never had it or seen it. But haggis is the national dish of Scotland, and it's a savory pudding made from a sheep's offal, which is the heart, liver, and lungs, minced with onions, oatmeal, suet, and spices. It is traditionally boiled inside the animal's stomach, yielding a surprisingly peppery, hearty, and earthy flavor comparable to a crumbly sausage. I'll be honest, I think it gets a bad rap because it's cooked inside of a stomach, but it actually sounds pretty good, right? I mean, onions are good, oatmeal is good. Do it. I can't say I've ever seen available or eaten, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of 18th century cooking from the Townsend's YouTube channel, and they do a lot with suet. Right? I think it's just a type of fat. So, I'd give it a shot. And then spices. And then, you do have some organ meat in there, right? The heart, the liver, the lungs. I've eaten chicken hearts. I don't know how different it is, right? So, okay. All right. I would definitely give that a shot if it was available. Then we have surströmming. Okay, that comes right up. Oh boy. Surströmming is a Swedish delicacy of fermented Baltic herring, famous for its extremely pungent smell, often compared to rotten eggs or cheese due to the fermentation process that continues in the cane. It's traditionally served outdoors. That's interesting. On flatbread with potatoes, onions, sour cream, and chives, and is known for its salty, sour, and savory taste, which many find surprisingly pleasant when prepared correctly. The can bulges from the fermentation, and it's often opened underwater to minimize the spray. Okay. That I'll be honest, I don't wanna offend anybody here, but that sounds awful. If you if you need to open it underwater because it smells so bad that you can't risk a spray, then Man, I'm gonna have to pass. And then the fact that the can's bulging from the fermentation process also doesn't sound like a good sign. That's rough. That is very rough. Definitely gonna have to pass on that. All right, next we have black pudding, which I'm gonna guess it's a type of blood pudding. All right, blood pudding is a type of blood sauce. Okay, there you go. Blood pudding is a type of blood sausage from the UK and Ireland, made from pork or beef blood, fat like suet, and a cereal filled such as oatmeal or barley, seasoned with spices and herbs. It's a staple of the traditional full English or Irish breakfast, often sliced and fried until crispy, and it is known for its rich, earthy, and savory flavor. Historically, it was a way to use all parts of an animal, and while it has a long history, it's now considered a delicacy, with regional variations and a resurgence in popularity. So, again, it seems very similar to haggis, except I guess instead of cooking it in the sheep's stomach, they're adding blood to kinda congeal it. I don't see why they need to add blood. I feel like milk might work or water instead. Looking at it, kinda looks like a pumpernickel bread. I could definitely see how you could confuse it for that. It doesn't look bad. If I didn't know what it was, I bet it would be good. I would definitely try if I didn't know what it was. Now knowing what it is, it's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of pushing me in the wrong direction. But like I said, it looks like a pumpernickel bread. It's really not bad. They say that it has an earthy, savory, and meaty flavor with a complex profile depending on the spices used. Complex profile is never a good sign. That's usually what somebody says when something doesn't taste good. Complex profile. All right, another one we have here, something called Met. I don't know what I've never heard of Met before. Even the internet doesn't seem to know what Met is. All right, let's see. Met is a German dish of raw minced pork, seasoned with salt, pepper, and other spices like caraway, garlic, or nutmeg, and typically served on a bread roll with raw onions. It's also known as a hackapeter and is popular for breakfast or as a party snack, sometimes shaped into a hedgehog with the onion spikes due to being raw. It must be extremely fresh and is sold under strict hygiene regulations, usually consumed the same day it's made. Ooh. Oh wow. Most commonly served on a bread roll with chopped raw onions, but can also be served with an egg yolk. Ah man, so it says you need to consume it quickly to avoid bacterial growth. But I've always heard that the big thing about cooking pork isn't the bacteria, but it's that it contains a lot of worms. So I'd be very worried to eat raw pork, especially raw pork, not even undercooked pork. But raw pork like that seems, I don't know, it seems like you could be asking for trouble. I would be afraid to try that. Last thing you wanna do is get some kind of a worm infection. I don't like the idea of eating raw meat in general. I know some of it's okay. It's just not something that I'm a fan of, but, the possibility of worms really does concern me. Alright. Next on our list, we have something called jellied eels. Never heard of this, although I think it's probably exactly what it sounds like. Jellied eels are a traditional East London dish of chopped eels, boiled in a spiced stock, which sets in a savory jelly as it cools, served cold with vinegar and pepper. Historically a cheap working class food, the dish's popularity declined due to pollution in the Thames and changing tastes, though it remains a classic part of pie, mash, and eel shops. The texture is soft and gelatinous with a mildly, slightly salty flavor and is often served with chili vinegar or parsley sauce. I've never heard of a parsley sauce, although chili vinegar is good. It dates back to the 18th century, made from eels that were plentiful in the Thames. Okay, that's interesting. That doesn't sound bad. depending on how it's prepared. I The pictures of it look very unappetizing. Looks purple and fairly gross. Uh, yeah, no, that's not okay. All right, moving on to something called raclette. Oh, it's a type of cheese. This looks good. Raclette is a semi-soft cow's milk cheese from the Swiss and French Alps, named after the French word for scrape because it's traditionally melted and scraped over. Oh, it's not scrape, it's scrape because it's traditionally melted and scraped over boiled potatoes, pickles, and cured meats. It has a pungent, washed rind and a creamy, fruity, and nutty interior that melts beautifully, making it a popular choice for communal meals and gourmet dishes. So, honestly, this sounds and looks very good. I would absolutely give this a shot. Of these 6 foods, I'd say that's probably the only one that seems appetizing to me personally, but I can't so I feel like it's a little unfair, this list, the way that we're comparing American foods and European foods. The American foods definitely seem more like common day-to-day foods. I know we're talking corn dogs that are, you know, like a fair food. Most Americans aren't eating corn dogs regularly. Biscuits and gravy are served at a lot of restaurants. I'd say that that's probably fairly common. I think grits used to be more common than it is now, but it's not out of the question for people to be eating grits. Frito pie, I don't know where Frito pie is common. Like I said, I've only ever heard of it on King of the Hill, so I don't know how often people are eating it. Peanut butter and jelly, that is a nationwide lunch, very common lunch for people of all ages. You know, Kids in kindergarten are eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and adults at work are eating them. Everybody likes peanut butter and jelly. And then Cincinnati chili isn't super common, but it's by no means rare. So, considering all of that, these European foods don't strike me as foods that are commonly eaten in Europe. Obviously people are eating them, but like peanut butter and jelly is eaten by millions of people every day. I'd be surprised to find out that millions of people are eating haggis every day or surströmming every day. These seem more like, like if you're having like a party or a celebration kind of event where you'd really partake in some of these foods. I don't know that this is really a fair comparison, but it's at least I guess worth having the conversation. So, for those American listeners out there, what foods should we be trying from Europe? And what foods should Europe adopt from us? Personally, I think peanut butter and jelly and corn dogs are right at the top of that list. I think that if they were to, if we were to be able to ship real peanut butter, like traditional American peanut butter to Europe, that they would enjoy it. And I think that we'd enjoy, blood pudding if it was introduced to the US properly. And definitely the Recollet cheese. I'm sure that would be a huge favorite here. So I do know like in Europe that they do have peanut butter, but it's not the same kind of peanut butter that we have here. I don't know really how it differs, but I know it's not the same. So when we're talking about peanut butter, I mean like if they were to try Skiff, or it's not Skiff, Skippy or Jeff, combine the two, that they'd really, really enjoy that. So I'd say probably the most overrated food on that list is probably, I'd say, the Skyline chili. People really talk chili up, and it's fine. It's okay. It's not something that I'm a huge fan of. Just that I'm not a big bean person, and it's like tomato sauce with beans in it. It's not bad. It's just it doesn't live up to the hype that people give it. Of the European foods, like I said, I think that raclette has to be probably the best. I'd say the strangest American ingredient on the list is probably the Frito pie. Just kind of combining Fritos and chili together. which I can see where they're coming from with that. So I don't think it's that weird, but it's the weirdest on the list. For the European list, it definitely has to be the fermented herring or the raw pork. You know, canned fermented herring, like I said, you have to open it underwater because of the spray. That's not a good sign. It's similar to it reminds me of garum, the ancient Roman fish sauce where they used to have laws about how far away from a town they could produce it because it smelled so badly that it would bother the people in the town. So I'd say that's probably the weirdest ingredient from the European list. So all the one thing that I think I'm noticing here is that a lot of these European dishes are traditional foods. And I'm sure that these go back hundreds of years to, the ancestors of the people living in these countries. Whereas America's a newer country. So we have a lot more modern foods and a lot more modern tastes, or like, I guess a modern national palate that they don't have in Europe. And because of that, I think, we're more accustomed to these flavors. Like you think about what's a corn dog? You have like a salty hot dog wrapped inside of a corn, um, like a cornmeal shell, and then fried. There's a lot of flavors going on there. You're combining two unlike things. And then you look at some of these European dishes, and it's mostly, just kind of easy to come by meats, probably cheaper cuts because people couldn't afford the more expensive cuts, when these dishes were originated from. And they're simple. So I think that has a lot to do with why we're seeing these differences, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's just a fact. Just I don't know, history. But yeah, no, definitely love to be able to try some of these foods. I don't think you should ever judge something without trying it like that because how can you know if you don't try it? So, given the opportunity, someday I'd love to go to Europe and be able to try these. Although I may have to pass on the canned herring. That may be a little too adventurous for me. But all these other ones I would definitely try. So I guess let me know in the comments. What are you guys thinking? Which American dish is your favorite? Which European dish would you be most willing to try or most wanting to try? And we'll see how, ours align. So what else has been going on? Man, I can't say I've been too active in the kitchen. Like I said, I've been enjoying my watermelon, enjoying my tacos. Uh, got some Domino's this weekend. Love Domino's. I feel like Domino's is really stepping their game up. You know, all my friends make fun of Domino's. I don't know why. I think they're just haters. Domino's is good quality, cheap food. I'm not gonna sit here and say, that Domino's is the same as like going to a regular pizza shop or pizzeria and getting a pizza, but it's good. It's salty, it's garlicky, has a nice crust. It's fast. It's like $7 for a pizza if you're using the coupons, which there's no reason to never not use the coupons. So I don't know why they hate on it. I think they're just I don't know. Well, I'm a big fan of Domino's. I highly recommend it. My personal favorite is I like to get the hand tossed pie, no robust tomato sauce. I think it's honey barbecue sauce instead. And then I do the pineapple and the chicken, which is a weird combination. Because I never like to really try new foods, not because I'm not adventurous, but I'm always worried that if I try something new, then like, I'll get Domino's maybe once a month. So if I try a new combination and I don't like it, then there goes my Domino's for the month. Like if somebody brought out 15 pizzas and let me try all of them, I would love to try different combinations of ingredients and toppings, but I get it so rarely that I don't want to risk having a bad pizza for my one pie that I get every couple weeks. But it's kind of a funny story actually where this chicken, pineapple, barbecue sauce pizza came from. Because in college, I had never had Domino's before, and there's one right near where I went to school. Well, I mean, I guess that's everywhere, right? What college doesn't have a Domino's right down the road? But I went with my roommate and I got a plain cheese pizza, and I don't know what he ordered, but when our pizzas came out, they must have gotten confused because they made 2 of what he ordered, and he had ordered the chicken, pineapple, and barbecue sauce pizza, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I like all those things. I didn't wanna wait for them to, make my pizza the right way 'cause it's just a plain cheese, and, barbecue sauce is good, pineapple's good, chicken's good, despite what some people say. It's like, "Oh, okay. I'll try it, give it a shot," and I really liked it. So, that kinda became my thing, is on Fridays at college, I'd get my Domino's pizza, and I'd order cinnamon twists, because if you so a Domino's pizza, a medium, I think now is almost like $20, like $18 for a medium pizza, but they always have the coupons. They used to be $6, now it's 7, inflation, it's hitting everybody hard. But this is for $7 each, and you have to buy 2 items, but it's $14 total. You get you can get a medium 2-topping pizza, you can get a pasta, you can get, like, one of their bread items or dessert for $7. So, you can get 1 pizza for $18, or you can get 2 pizzas for $14. I don't understand why anybody wouldn't use the coupons. It just doesn't make sense to me. I've seen, like, the large 1 toppings for $8. That's not a bad coupon either. I'm a 2 topping kinda guy, so I need to get my both of my toppings in. So now I normally do, like, the chicken Alfredo, which is pretty good. It's a small portion, but I like it a lot, as one of my entrees, and then I get the pizza as my other entree, and then I'll save my pasta for another day. But back in college, I was a big cinnamon twist fan. I still like them, but, try not to eat that much sugar. I know it's not good. None of this is good for you. So I don't want to kind of add on to eating pizza with the cinnamon twists. Here's a question for you guys too. When you're eating Domino's, how much pizza do you eat? I thought it was just kind of customary that everybody eats like the full medium pizza, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. Like I guess if you're getting like a normal, also, like, does anybody not order large pizza if you're ordering pizza from a pizzeria? Like, does anybody ever order a small pizza or a medium pizza? I always say large cheese or like a large pie, but I never really thought of the fact that there's other sizes. And then you guys fold your pizza? I don't know if that's like a New York thing or not, but I always fold my pizza. And then I'll travel sometimes and see other people eating pizza and they don't fold their pizza. I don't know if that's just like a regional thing or maybe it's, adopted from New York City where you're, getting a slice of pizza and walking with it and it's just easier to eat like that. Or maybe it's just New York style pizza is just, better suited for folding the slice. Like you can't take like Chicago pizza, that's almost like a soup, but you can't take something like that on the go, let alone fold it. Detroit pizza, you could definitely eat it and walk, but you can't fold that either. I'd say of the 3 pizza types, New York, Chicago, and Detroit, New York style pizza is by far the best. Detroit is second, and then Chicago may as well not even be considered pizza, but it is, some people consider pizza, so we'll put it on the list, but it is just nowhere near as good as New York style. So also, it's like if you go to Chicago and you order pizza, what do you get? Right? Do you get New York style pizza or do you get deep dish pizza? Or in Chicago, is deep dish pizza called deep dish pizza? Right? I've been to Chicago and gotten it, and I don't really remember what I ordered. It wasn't very good though. I do know that. I think it was at a place called Uno's, which I thought was supposed to be pretty popular, but it was not good. And then when I went to Detroit, I went to Jet Pizza, which I know is a chain. I think Uno was a chain too. So I do recognize that these probably aren't the most representative or the best representatives of Chicago and Detroit pizza. But Jet Pizza was pretty good. It's super greasy, which I wasn't a huge fan of because it's kind of messy. But it was pepperoni, so I think it doesn't. It's gonna be greasy, right? It's just part of what it is. But it was okay. Like I said, I know it's a chain, so it's probably not the best, but it was pretty good. Yeah, I guess. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts too about like the folding versus non-folding pizza. Do you eat your pizza with a fork and knife? I fold my pizza. I don't know why. I just kind of like it. I feel like it gives it good structure, makes it easier to eat. Just all around seems like the best way to go about it. But yeah. And then if you're eating pizza too, what's your drink of choice? Nothing is better, honestly, than when you eat a Domino's pizza and then about like 2 hours later, you're super thirsty and you have a nice cold glass of water because of all the salt in the pizza. That feels so good to get that hydration in after just being completely dehydrated from the pizza. That just, like I said, getting the hydration is just, it's so nice. It's like having life like put back into you. But yeah, no, speaking of drinks, if you guys have made it this far into the podcast, then you guys all deserve this tip that I'm going to give you right now. Yeah, so obviously we all know Sprite, the soda, lemon lime soda, but I've never seen this before. I think I came up with this on my own, and I highly recommend everybody try it. You take Sprite and you take a lemon and a lime and you squeeze them into the glass of Sprite, and having that like kick of fresh citrus in there is so good. Sprite bills itself as a lemon lime soda, but it doesn't really taste like lemon and lime. It's good. I don't really know what it tastes like. I'd call it fresh, but it's not lemon lime. But putting a lemon and a lime into it, like, squeezing them into the soda, man, that turns it into a lemon lime soda and it elevates the flavor, maybe from like a 4 to I'd give it an 8 or a 9. It just, it changes it so much for the better. Which makes me want to try that with like a Fresca, right? That's a grapefruit soda. I feel like getting a grapefruit and squeezing that into a Fresca. Maybe I'll do that. That might be a good TikTok, right? Good content for the channels. Do make one with a Sprite with the lemon and lime, then do a Fresca with the grapefruit. It's a pretty good combination, I think. Yeah, I guess. Let me know if anybody else has ever heard of that. But I think that's a Steven special, a chopping it up original. That's a real pro tip right there. Like I said, if you guys have made it this far into the podcast, then good for you. You deserve that information because that's a game changer. You can never have Sprite the same way after that again. And I wonder what other kind of soda. Like if you take orange soda and you put orange in it, I wonder what that's like. I've had it. I always like to put a little bit of wine in my soda sometimes. I feel like the grape kind of, adds a flavor to it, like a little bit of grape and orange soda. My dad always told me he used to drink that growing up. So I tried that once. Very good. I've put it in Sprite as well. Enjoyed that. Like I said, I think just, something about the grape flavor mixed in with these sodas and something about like the dryness and the sweetness of the soda. They really just complement each other well. You don't add a lot, just a splash, or like maybe like a tablespoonful. But, just enough to like change the color of it. Just really elevates the flavor profile. But yeah, tell me what you guys think. I think what else have I had going on? We made some banana muffins last week. Those were good, right? Instead of making banana bread, just took the same recipe and put them in muffin tins. and they were, super portable, great and easy to bring to work. Good snack. So there's that. Been eating some nectarines and peaches. Always love those. They're a little messy, right? It's like you're eating like an apple, or it's just like a ball of mush, which I guess the ball of mush is sweeter and probably tastier, but it's so messy that I almost prefer to eat them like an apple, which, is not the best experience, but it is what it is. You know, it's kind of part of it. Um, been enjoying my bananas, strawberries, and blueberries seem to be in season now, so that's nice. Those are fairly reasonable at the grocery store, and I've been enjoying those. I've been eating my pretzels every day. I like to bring a serving of pretzels with me for, as a snack after lunch at work. And then I like to throw in like a little piece of candy, put in a Swedish fish. Or today I had a bite-sized milk or Three Musketeers in there. Just as a little something, something, just a little snack, you know, while you're at work, you're working hard. It's nice to have a little treat to kind of, brighten the mood a little bit. So the mood needs to be brightened. But, just like a little pick me up, I guess is a better word for it. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Still enjoying the turkey sausage and English muffins. I feel like this is, like I said, I guess this podcast episode really was more about my food likes, whereas I'd like to get more into different food topics. Once Joe comes back, talk about maybe our favorite restaurants. Um, I don't know, maybe new food releases. I'd like to get into that. I'd really like to be able to prepare more for the podcast before we record them and bring more structured discussions. Like I'd like to make a PowerPoint that I could bring and present. I think that would be fun. And I'd like to, have more visuals for people to watch and, kind of follow along if they're going to watch it, I don't know, on their phone or TV or something like that. I know nobody really listens now. So I don't know how relevant that is, but I think if we want to grow the podcast, that would probably be a good way to go about it. Is you need to have something that makes people want to stick around and watch, right? You want to make an episode that people want to come back to the next episode for, right? They want to come back to part 2. So, I think that's probably what we really need to focus on if we want to grow the podcast. But, we're not doing it for views. We're doing it because it's something fun that we can do together. It's a nice way to stay in touch as friends. And, we both like food. So, it's something that we share an interest in. So it's a good thing to just kind of talk about and have a podcast. Sometimes we get a little derailed, but I feel like it's all part of the enjoyment. That's part of the process. Like right now, getting derailed, talking about stuff other than food. But nobody wants it to just be about food. It's just kind of on rails. It's dry. This whole thing's been kind of dry. I guess I don't know how to keep it entertaining all by myself. But I think that's something that maybe we need to work on. Kind of adding a little bit more. I don't know, pizzazz to the discussions. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to grow it. It's hard to kind of know how to get followers and subscribers. I think it's kind of being consistent and trying to stay on a schedule is the best way to go about it. Just uploaded episode 17 tonight. I was record episode 18. Trying to be consistent on TikTok. I have a series that I've been doing, Chipotle Cleanliness Inspection, where we go to our local Chipotle and just, give them a ranking from 1 to 10 on how clean it is in there. Because I don't know about you guys, but my experience with Chipotle is that every time I go in, it's dirty. There's garbage all over. There's food all over the tables. People were kind enough in the comments to let me know that this is from the customers. So thank you for that. I thought that was obvious, but I appreciate people letting me know just in case they thought that I didn't know. But yes, there's always food on the counters, wrappers, garbage all over the place. And I thought every time we go to Chipotle, that's how it is. And it doesn't matter what Chipotle we go to because we've been to many. I'd say maybe, I don't know, throw a number out, maybe 10 Chipotles across the country. And they're all like that inside. So I just assumed that it's a Chipotle thing. So that's kind of what gave birth to this uh, concept. Was we just went into a Chipotle one day, and it was just so dirty in there that I thought, you know what, we need to make this into a TikTok, and it did pretty well on TikTok. We only have 16 followers, so if anybody's listening to this, please go ahead and follow us. But it got almost, I think, what, 900 likes over on TikTok. So people liked it. So I thought, okay, let's keep doing this. So I've been, every week I go back out to Chipotle and do another cleanliness inspection. And I'm hoping it kind of turns into like the One Bite Pizza review from Barstool Sports. Obviously, that's massive. And that's not going to, we're not going to be that. But, it's just kind of a fun, lighthearted series that I think everybody can relate to. And, you know, it's just fun. So, yeah, that's what we've been up to. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, why don't you go ahead, check it out. They're short. You could watch them all in about a minute. Just kind of go in, walk around the Chipotle, take a look, and go from there. Give my opinion. This week they got a 9 out of 10 because not only was it surprisingly clean in there, but I saw a guy cleaning, so that was nice. That's a first. And then they also gave proper portions for burritos. None of the give them the look, as Brian Nickel, former CEO of Chipotle, said. Give them the look to give you a proper portion. None of that. They gave a true proper portion, so that was nice. So, kind of running out of topics here to discuss with you guys. So, I think we're going to end it here. But check us out over on TikTok at Chopping It Up. Check us out on YouTube at Chopping It Up. Check us out on Spotify at Chopping It Up. And check us out at Instagram at Chopping It Up. We post TikToks several times a week. Try and do weekly uploads of the podcast. Normally Joe's here and it's a lot more fun. With just me, it's a little dry, but the TikToks are always good. They're always something new, something refreshing, something fun, something relatable. So go ahead and check those out. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. And as my co host Joe likes to say, he was always told by his mother that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. But if you do, leave it in a comment. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Chopping It Up. Thank you for chopping it up with me, guys. Have a good rest of your day, good rest of your evening, and I hope that you enjoy whatever you're chopping up tonight. Bye.